Welcome to a deep dive into the future of work, innovation, and AI.
Yep.
We're going to be unpacking excerpts from a conversation
Right.
between two people who are really kind of knee-deep in this world,
Yeah.
and they're sharing some really interesting insights
Right.
based on real-world events and their own experiences.
It's like they're giving us a glimpse
Yeah,
into what's coming next.
totally.
Like both the big picture and the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. And our goal today is to help you
Yeah.
understand how this might impact your own work and life.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in.
Right.
One of the first things that jumped out at me
Okay.
was a prediction from a Forbes article. They say we're headed for a major shift away from the traditional 9 to 5 workday by 2035.
Wow.
And the driving force,
What is it?
you guessed it, AI and automation.
It's so fascinating how fast it's all happening.
Yeah.
One of the speakers in your sources, they compared it to other
Yeah.
technological advancements like the car, the computer, like the iPhone.
Yeah,
Each of those took years, even decades, to really become mainstream.
totally.
But with AI, it's like everything's happening so much faster.
It does feel that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like we blinked and suddenly AI is everywhere.
Right.
So that brings up a big question for you listening.
Okay.
How might your work change in this new landscape?
Mm-hmm.
What skills will be most valuable?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because the speakers predict that companies are going to increasingly turn to AI agents
Yeah.
to replace human workers for
Yeah.
tasks that are repetitive or can be easily automated.
Mm-hmm.
And they see it as a way to boost efficiency, cut costs,
Yeah.
and have their workforce operating 24/7.
Right.
That's a little unsettling, right?
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
But one of the speakers also made a point of saying that a lot of companies are jumping on the AI bandwagon without a clear plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hiring AI consultants left and right, and some of whom may not even be qualified,
Wow.
you know?
Yeah.
And they even shared this anecdote about a conference they attended
Interesting.
where a software program created an entire online course in just 15 minutes.
Wow, 15 minutes.
It's wild.
That's incredible.
It's a powerful example of how quickly AI is evolving
Yeah.
and the potential it has to disrupt entire industries.
Wow.
So think about that for a second.
Okay.
What if you were a business owner?
Okay.
How would you respond to this pressure to adopt AI?
Right.
How would you handle employees whose jobs might be at risk because of it?
Tough questions.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in for sure.
Definitely.
But it also leads to this really interesting question.
What's that?
If AI can potentially do so much,
Right.
what makes us humans irreplaceable?
Yeah, what does?
Okay, so here's where the conversation gets really thought-provoking.
Okay.
The speakers argue that there are some things that AI simply can't replicate, and they point into things like tacit knowledge,
No?
wisdom, and individual personality.
Interesting.
It's interesting that they bring up tacit knowledge.
Yeah.
It's something we often take for granted, but it's the kind of knowledge that's hard to articulate or document.
Right.
You know it when you see it, but
Yeah.
how do you explain it?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the intuition you build up over years of experience.
Exactly.
The understanding of subtle nuances, the ability to make judgment calls based on a gut feeling. And one of the speakers gave this really relatable example.
Okay.
They talked about feeling undervalued during their time at Amazon.
Okay.
Like their human qualities weren't appreciated. It was all about metrics and efficiency.
That makes sense.
And that actually ties into another point they made.
Okay.
They believe that companies are going to need to find ways to capture this tacit knowledge before experienced employees leave or retire.
Oh, that's interesting.
Otherwise, they risk losing a wealth of invaluable insights and expertise.
Right.
So thinking about your own career, what are your unique experiences and skills
Yeah.
that AI can't replicate?
Good question.
What are those things you bring to the table that are uniquely human? One of the speakers had this fascinating concept they called real-world experience.
Okay.
And they argue that these experiences, things that involve physicality, emotions, and deeper human connection
Yeah.
will become increasingly valuable
I see.
as AI takes over more of the digital world.
That makes sense.
And they even use the example of Amazon Fresh's supply chain to illustrate their point.
Right.
AI can handle all the predictable, everyday tasks.
Yeah.
But what happens when something unexpected throws a wrench in the works?
Right. Like what?
Like a sudden outbreak of bird flu
Right.
or a major equipment breakdown.
Interesting.
These are the situations where human intuition and problem-solving skills become essential.
I see, yeah.
And the speakers emphasize that companies need to find ways to foster innovation and creativity in their human workforce.
Yeah.
They suggested that immersive real-world experiences might be one way to do that.
Interesting.
So let's bring this back to you.
Okay.
What kind of real-world experiences would develop those unique human skills that AI can't touch?
That's a great question.
How could you weave those experiences into your work or maybe even create entirely new opportunities for yourself?
Right.
These are big questions.
They are.
And it all comes down to figuring out what questions we should be asking ourselves
Yeah.
as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks are scared and in denial,
Okay.
while others are cautiously optimistic,
Mm-hmm.
and some are even excited about the possibilities.
That makes sense.
One of them mentioned that a lot of people,
Okay.
particularly those in middle or upper management,
Mhm.
are approaching AI with what they called a survival agenda.
What's a survival agenda?
Basically, they're just trying to hold on to their current roles
Okay.
for as long as possible, maybe even until retirement,
Uh-huh.
without really engaging with the technology
Really?
or its implications.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that makes sense when you think about how quickly AI is being adopted.
It does.
While some people are still trying to wrap their heads around what AI even is,
Yeah.
others are already deeply involved in its development and implementation.
Right.
And that creates this real knowledge gap
Right.
that can be hard to bridge,
That's it.
especially for those who aren't particularly tech savvy.
Makes sense.
It's almost like we're seeing a new kind of digital divide emerge.
Interesting.
But this time, it's all about AI literacy.
Yeah, literacy. Oh,
And as AI becomes more integrated into our lives,
right.
this gap could have huge consequences.
Yeah, like what?
Think about it.
Yep.
Access to opportunities, economic inequality,
Right.
and even social cohesion.
Interesting.
You know, if a big chunk of the population is left behind
Yeah.
in this AI revolution,
Yeah.
the effects could be far-reaching.
Definitely.
And remember how the speakers talked about that surge
Yeah.
in AI consultants?
Mhm.
Well, it shows that there's a huge demand for guidance
Right.
and expertise in this area,
Uh-huh.
but it also raises concerns about misinformation.
One of the speakers had a really interesting perspective on this.
Okay, what is it?
They believe companies need to invest,
Mm-hmm.
not just in training their employees on the technical aspects of AI,
Right.
but also in helping them develop the uniquely human skills
Uh-huh.
that will be even more valuable
Okay.
in the future.
Yeah.
And this is where the concepts of personality
Like
and personal story come in.
Oh, interesting.
They argue that in a world that's becoming increasingly dominated by AI,
Yeah.
it'll be the human qualities
Mm-hmm.
that AI can't replicate
Okay.
that will set us apart.
Like what?
Things like our creativity,
Oh, okay.
our empathy,
Yeah.
and our ability to connect with others on a deeper level.
They even talked about the importance of personal branding and using social media to showcase those qualities.
Really?
It's almost like we need to become even more human
Wow.
to differentiate ourselves from the machines.
So interesting.
Isn't that fascinating? It's such a paradox,
It is.
but it really speaks to the power of human connection.
It does.
Even in a digital world,
Yeah.
people crave authenticity and real interactions.
Right.
And that's why the speakers believe real-world experiences will become even more valuable.
Oh.
They argue that these experiences, things like traveling,
Okay.
volunteering,
Uh-huh.
pursuing creative hobbies, or even just spending time in nature,
Right.
can help us develop the skills and qualities that AI just can't.
Okay.
They also believe companies can play a role in fostering these qualities
Interesting.
by creating work environments that encourage collaboration, experimentation, and even risk-taking. They talked about moving away from a purely metric-driven culture
Okay.
and embracing the less predictable, more human side of things. But it's an inspiring vision, you know?
It is.
But it does bring up some important questions.
What's what?
Like, how do we balance the need for efficiency and productivity
Right.
with the desire for creativity and human connection? Well, one idea that stood out to me
Okay.
was the concept of knowledge mirroring.
Knowledge mirroring.
They talked about using tools like mind mapping
Right.
and AI-powered platforms to capture the tacit knowledge of experienced employees
Yeah.
before they leave a company.
Interesting.
It's like creating a digital twin
Oh, wow.
of someone's knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
Just imagine being able to access the wisdom and insights of a seasoned expert even after they've retired
Right.
or moved on to a different role.
That is really interesting.
But that's a powerful concept.
It is.
But it also brings up ethical questions.
Like what?
Like, who owns this knowledge?
Okay.
And how do we make sure it's used responsibly?
Good point.
These are all important points to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And it really highlights how important it is to approach AI implementation
Right.
carefully and thoughtfully.
Totally.
You know, it's not just about the tech itself,
Uh-huh.
but about the human values and principles
Right.
that guide how we use it.
Makes sense.
One of the speakers even suggested
Yeah.
that we need to develop a new set of AI ethics
AI ethics.
to
Interesting.
help us navigate this uncharted territory.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
they argued that we can't just apply our existing ethical frameworks
Right.
to a technology that's fundamentally changing
Yeah.
the way we live, work, and interact with each other.
It's true.
It's a thought-provoking idea, right?
Yeah, it is.
It really speaks to how complex this whole AI thing is, you know?
Yeah.
We're not just talking about technological innovation. We're talking about social,
Uh-huh.
cultural,
Yeah.
and even philosophical change.
Wow.
So where do we go from here?
Good question.
The speakers didn't lay out a clear roadmap,
Right.
but they did offer some valuable insights and perspectives to help us move forward.
Like what?
Well, one key takeaway for me was the importance of embracing a mindset
Okay.
of continuous learning and adaptation.
I like that.
In a world where AI is constantly evolving,
Right.
we have to be willing to let go of old ways of thinking
Yeah.
and embrace new skills and ideas.
Makes sense.
And they emphasized how important collaboration and community are,
Totally.
you know?
Yeah.
We can't face these challenges alone.
No.
We need to work together,
Right.
share what we know,
Mhm.
and support each other
Yeah.
as we figure all this out. In the final part, we're going to explore some concrete steps
Okay.
that you can take to thrive
Awesome.
in the age of AI. Okay, so we've talked about how AI is changing the game, the importance of uniquely human skills, and the need to be constantly learning. But what can you actually do with all of this information? What are the concrete steps you can take starting tomorrow?
Well, one of the speakers in your sources made a brilliant analogy. They said, imagine you're a ship captain in the age of exploration. You have this incredible new tool, the compass, but it's only useful if you know where you want to go.
I love that analogy. It highlights the importance of setting a direction. So before we dive into specific actions, think about your goals. What kind of work gets you excited? What impact do you want to have on the world? Once you have that compass heading, you can chart a course.
Exactly. And when you're charting that course, think about the skills you'll need to reach your destination. What experiences will help you stand out in an AI-powered world?
This is where the idea of real-world experiences comes back into play. It's not just about technical skills. It's about developing those human qualities that AI can't replicate.
All right, think about it this way. What experiences will help you cultivate creativity, empathy, critical thinking, problem solving, and adaptability? These are the skills that will be in high demand as AI handles more of the routine tasks.
So maybe that means taking a course on design thinking, volunteering for a cause you're passionate about, learning a new language, or even starting a side hustle to experiment with new ideas.
The key is to be intentional about your choices. Seek out experiences that challenge you and push you to grow. Remember, the future belongs to those who are constantly learning and evolving.
But it's not just about individual effort. The speakers we're discussing emphasize the importance of building a strong network of human connections.
Absolutely. Collaboration and community are going to be more crucial than ever in an AI-powered world. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and support you along the way.
That might mean joining a professional organization, attending industry events, or simply reaching out to people you admire and asking for advice.
And don't underestimate the power of mentorship. Find someone who's been there and done that, someone who can offer guidance and support as you face new challenges.
It's like building a human safety net for the age of AI.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that AI is ultimately a tool. It's up to us to decide how we use it. We can let it control us, or we can use it to empower ourselves and create a better future.
Such a powerful point. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. What if, instead of fearing AI, we see it as a chance to rediscover what it means to be human?
What if we use this moment of disruption to reconnect with our values, passions, and purpose? What if we create a future where humans and AI work together, not as competitors, but as collaborators, to solve problems and reach our full potential?
That's a future worth striving for. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel informed, inspired, and ready to take action. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.